Make America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. That's a song that's probably not familiar to my guest, Congressman Mike Gallagher, because it involves a big game that the whole country tunes into every year, something he is not familiar with since he's from Wisconsin. And I'm in a Thanksgiving mood, so I'm not going to bring up last weekend where the Packers ingloriously lost to the 49ers in a sort of a ghost of Christmas future. And the Browns won. They beat the Miami Dolphins. I'm just going to ask Congressman Gallagher to stick to the issues this morning. Good morning, Congressman.
Good morning, Hugh. I am a Badger fan, but I am married to a Michigan grad, and I had my maiden voyage to the Big House a few weeks ago. And I don't understand your allegiances, because didn't you go to Michigan Law School?
I did, but I am from Ohio, and I treat Michigan as the Vikings treated England originally. Go in, get what's worth having, and leave.
Well, and as a Northeast Wisconsinite, I should say that the long-standing disputes between Ohio and Michigan have cost us greatly. The Upper Peninsula was robbed from us owing to a land dispute over Toledo between these two states, and we need to take it back. So if you guys could stop fighting each other at my expense, I would greatly appreciate it.
You know, we won the the Toledo War. Ohio beat Michigan in the Toledo War, and they haven't stopped. Do you know how many times we beat Michigan in the last 15 years?
I do not.
14 out of 15 games. Pretty remarkable. Why do we even play it? I just ask people that. It's just a tradition thing. It's like Army and it's like Navy and Notre Dame now. Mike Gallagher, I got to get to something serious because I also got to do some work today in this segment. Hong Kong. I played the Les Mis. Bring up the music for a second, because last night I was with a China expert, and the China expert told me that this is what the Hong Kong demonstrators have been singing for the last many months. And then they voted the sentiment of this song, winning 389 out of 450 seats. What did you make of this?
Well, it's much like Cold War Berlin. I think Hong Kong has become the epicenter of struggle between totalitarianism and the free world. And I think the good guys scored a major victory over the weekend when we've had pro-democracy parties winning about 85% of more than 450 district council seats in Hong Kong's local election. To put that in context, that's a swing of about 50 percentage points from the last election, and truly a monumental shift. It's all the more incredible because some leading pro-democracy candidates, including Joshua Wong, were barred from running for office. So while it wasn't a 100% free election, it certainly is the closest thing to it on Chinese soil. And it goes to show that when the CCP shows the Chinese people what it really is, they will overwhelmingly reject it.
It's. I think that is clear. Now, the key thing is what is to be done, to use a Leninist phrase. Your predecessor in this slot, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, I think very correctly called out the People's Republic of China and General Secretary Xi for the Uyghur concentration camps this week, pointing to the New York Times reporting on this. And I believe he indicated that the Hong Kong Act will become law. I did not indicate whether it will do so by virtue of signature or simply by passing into law. There will be no pocket veto, and there will be no veto. So is that enough?
Well, certainly a step in the right direction, and I commend Secretary Pompeo for highlighting that. And to your listeners, with the exception of the Steelers fans who we know cannot read, I would commend that reporting to them. We have over 400 pages of classified internal documents that the New York Times has published, not only outlining the CCP's relentless and racially based crackdown on Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang, but it also connects the dots squarely back to the highest levels of the Chinese Communist Party. On Sunday, the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists published a similar treasure trove of internal documents that serve basically as an instruction manual for the concentration camps in Xinjiang. And these are the first leaks of Chinese government documents specifically about the inner workings of the camps. They shed light on the totalitarian control exercised by the CCP. All signs indicate that the leaks come from sources high in the Chinese government. And while it's early to say, these are fascinating examples of widening fissures within the Chinese Communist Party. And it sure looks to me like someone or some faction is trying to discredit General Secretary Xi and walk back the Xinjiang crackdown. And I'm extremely interested to see where things go from there. To your question, Hugh, I certainly hope President Trump signs this bipartisan bill as soon as possible. I was heartened to hear him say yesterday that he stands with the Hong Kong protesters. And as I wrote in the Washington Post earlier this year, if we limit our interaction with the CCP to the economic and security pillars only, we'll be playing into their hands. If anything, we need to elevate human rights to a third and co-equal pillar of the relationship in order to keep the pressure on and better compete with the CCP over the long haul.
Now, Congressman Gallagher, I also asked my China expert about 3 books. Henry Kissinger's On China, Graham Allison's Destined for War, Michael Pillsbury, The 100-Year Marathon. I got candid assessments of each of them, but more importantly, I got this message. We don't have to have Cold War II. We don't have to have that, but the General Secretary needs to instruct the party cadres that it's a new world, and this president, Donald Trump's greatest achievement, is to awaken the world to this new world, and that the competition is bilateral. It's really just the world and China. And China doesn't want to be part of the world. It wants to dominate the world. And we have to understand that. Doesn't mean war, but we just have to understand that. Do you agree with that characterization?
Well, to the list of books, I would add a third by
Fourth.
Mattis, not the general, or the fourth, but Peter Mattis, who's a brilliant China scholar, has a new book on Chinese communist espionage, an intelligence primer. It is fascinating. It is essential reading, and he really elucidates the depth and extent of how China is infiltrating countries around the world. And to your point, Hugh, just how disparate a vision China is operating. And so I don't know if, Cold War is the right analogy. I do think, however, we are at a state of competition that is just as difficult, and the stakes are just as high as the stakes were in the late 40s and early 50s with the Soviet Union. And what makes this competition in some ways more difficult than our competition with the Soviet Union is that we do not need to decouple our economy from the Soviet economy because they weren't connected really in any way. Our economy and the Chinese economy are so thoroughly intertwined that even medium and small-sized businesses in Green Bay, Wisconsin, are discovering they have supply chains that stretch all the way back to Beijing. And so this is a huge challenge because the fact is, while we're not going to totally decouple, we still want Wisconsin soybean farmers to sell those soybeans to China. We are going to have to dig a moat around key sensitive technologies that we want to guard from Chinese espionage and influence. And if you just examine what General Secretary Xi himself is saying, but all the high CCP officials are saying, you quickly conclude that their vision for the future is incompatible with that of the free world, and we still remain the leader of the free world, and our task is to defend the free world and extend the blessings of the free world to future generations.
Now, I am not familiar with Peter Mattis. I've just gone to his website. He's obviously a prolific author. What is the new book titled?
It is called Chinese Communist Espionage, an Intelligence Primer, and it's by Peter Mattis, and I believe he has a co-author, Matthew Brazil is his co-author's name. Peter did phenomenal work at the Jamestown Foundation. I believe now he is working for Senator Rubio on the Congressional China Commission. He is really an incredible scholar, and if Rubio would let you have him on the program, I would highly recommend that. And so that the book is just eye-opening in terms of what it reveals about how the CCP operates.
All right, I will get the book, and I will go searching for Mr. Mattis. Let me quickly close on the Navy. It's been a tumultuous week for the Navy. I just want to focus on one thing, 355. Are we going to get back on plan?
We've got to. Nothing else matters. And I worry that this latest, brouhaha between the White House and the Navy brings us further away from that. We need the new Secretary of the Navy to come to the Hill and lay out a plausible path to 355, not 30 years from now, but 10 years from now. And we need the defense primes to be on board. We need everybody to be rowing their oars in the same direction. And so I'm really worried about what this means for the plan going forward. I have some optimism because I know that the new National Security Advisor, Robert O'Brien, understands the necessity of having a 355-ship Navy. If you actually analyze and read the National Security Strategy and the National Defense Strategy, you will realize that this is a sea power dependent strategy. This doesn't mean we need, huge, exquisite ships. In fact, we can have smaller ships, autonomous ships, unmanned surface vehicles that will help us get to 355. We can be very creative, but I am worried about the fact that we're not making expeditious progress towards that promise. The final thing I'd say about this recent problem or debate over Eddie Gallagher in the Navy is that I think we have to ask, where does it start? To me, it is a further example for why we need a confirmed Navy General Counsel. Hugh, I know you've been a huge advocate for Cully Simpson from the Heritage Foundation. The president nominated twice for the position, and despite a favorable report from the Senate Armed Services Committee, he never received an up or down vote on the Senate floor. So no wonder the Navy didn't handle the Gallagher case well. They did not have a confirmed general counsel with political savvy like Cully Simpson to help them navigate.
Boy, that's a great point.
Waters.
That's a great point. I'm going to leave on that point. Cully Simpson could be back up there this week and confirmed if they're really worried about this, but they're not. It's talking points from the Dems. Mike Gallagher, happy Thanksgiving to you. I am thankful for your weekly appearances, though you don't know anything about sports. You do know your national defense and your Navy. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.